What's up, everyone? Thank you for helping back on another episode of the Ghost Pod. We got our boy Jake Banwart from Bam Fam hopping on with us. Jake, thanks for jumping in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Just to kind of get going, we've had a lot of discussions, at the ABCA and stuff like that. Just talk a little bit about what you do, your role, your job, everything like that.
Yeah, so I taught for 9 years. I no longer do that, which is awesome. 2 years ago went full time in baseball and softball. So kind of split between a few different things. I am the president of BAM and FAM, so that's our baseball and softball program. We have about 55 teams between those two sides of the program. And then I am an owner at the Lab Sports Performance in Indianapolis. So that's our indoor facility that we run. And I do all of our infield and mindset training there. And then I get to work with high school and college athletes on individual and group mindset training from all over the world, all over the country, and different sports, which is pretty cool to be able to do that. So, although I'm not in the classroom teaching anymore, there's still a lot of teaching that's happening. It's just more tailored towards athletes than the general population student.
Yeah, I remember, one of our first conversations was the two biggest things here was infield and mindset. So
Yep.
I was really pumped up to get you on here. I know Mike's big on the mindset stuff too. So
Definitely.
hearing you
So,
guys chat that up is gonna be super cool. Let's start with the infield stuff first.
yeah.
What's your biggest philosophy? What's your biggest thing when you're teaching infield?
Man, it's always interesting getting into infield conversation because everybody has like their thing, right? And I think to some extent, like my biggest thing is we need to let athletes be athletes. There's a lot of different ways to complete the play. And if we look at, you got 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds to complete a play in baseball, even less in softball. There are different types of athletes that are going to work differently to the ball through it, different arm strengths, different hand speeds, all the things to where ultimately we need the play completed in the overall allotted time. So if you have a stronger arm and you're able to sit back more and read a hop better, great. If you can just attack and go and get something and play more one-handed downhill and on the run, it really depends on the fielder. So for me, like I see it as our job as infield coaches to give them all of the tools and then kind of lead them in the direction of letting them figure out like in game what style of play is going to let them show who they are while still getting the actual job done. So I think the biggest like has to be a certain way type thing for me is just understanding of lane and hop. You get a lot of coaches that are like, hey, you got to press through everything. And then you get some that are big on like funneling to center and getting everything through midline. And both are true, but we did way too much research. I had a couple nights where we just had players come in, some that I trained, some that I didn't, and we put them all through a 25 ball round of working direct forehand, backhand, do or dies, and mid hops. And I went back and watched video of every single play and tracked what was their glove pattern, what was the success rate based on the glove pattern. And it matched exactly what we had been teaching, which was awesome. But ultimately for me, like any ball that the ball is doing the work, so long hops, snake balls, or a ball that's just rolling, that's a ball we just got to bring to center. That's going to be our quickest transfer. We can get that out very smooth. Any ball that we have to kill spin, so short hops or short mid that we have to go and get, that's a ball that we're trying to go and kill the hop before it actually happens. We got to press through those. So I think as a fielder, like understanding one, like the ball can be hit directly at me, and that can be a two-hand lane, or I can work around and create a one. That's where their freedom comes in. But you get a lot of coaches that say, like, well, we just want athletes, we want our infielders to play free. Yes, but freedom comes from understanding discipline and the confines within what you're supposed to do. And then once you're doing those things right, you can figure out how to manipulate and put your own style on it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to hear you break it down like that. Like as a young player that I was at one time, trying to improve in infield. Biggest thing I went to was YouTube, like hearing Ron Washington
Yep.
talk infield and all the drills he used to do with Acuna and whoever else like he would work with or Albies, whatever it was. And then just seeing kind of how that progressed, and then hearing Francisco Lindor hear about or talk about defense and how he talks about playing defense, basically like you're on offense, right? To either go get the
Yep.
ball, kill the spin, or you know everything that we're breaking down right here, but just hearing it broken down like that's pretty cool. Really.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the idea of being offensive is so important and
Mhm.
like attacking. But I think a lot of times with young players, when we use the term attack, they think the only way to attack is like dead forward. Like I just have to go and get the ball. But like we try to get our infielders to understand the idea of attacking space. Like we don't want to attack the ball. If we just attack the ball, our glove's not ready. But if we attack the space or attack the intersection to where we can get a hop that we can handle, we can get the ball and be on time with release to first, then we're going the right direction, right? So like sometimes hard hit ball, we might have to give ground and actually drop step on that. But we want our players in the mindset that although they're moving away from the ball, they're still attacking space. They're just attacking the intersection to where that's a hop that's easier to handle because it was hit hard. We had time to go back, right? So much of it is interesting to do mindset and infield because even just like language and like the way that we are saying things to them changes the way that we play. Right? If we say like, hey, back up on that ball, they're already thinking defensive. But if we say, hey, we want to attack that space to get a better hop, now they're thinking like, okay, I'm going to be distinct about my movements. I'm going to be direct in how I attack. So it just changes the way that they play when you change your language and how you're training them to.
And it's crazy how, we're talking infield and we said the second biggest thing was the mental side of things, and they tie in so well.
So much.
Just
Yep.
said, just the cadence you use and the way you talk, talk about how that, like, I mean, you kind of did a little bit, but elaborate on how, the mental side of things affect you not only as an infielder, but just as a player in general.
There is so much time between pitches, right? Like an average of 15 seconds between pitches, and players don't realize that you're going to win. Our goal is to win the 15. So the players like it because the acronym's WTF. So we just tell them, hey, WTF, win the 15, like win the 15 seconds between each pitch. But a lot of times, like, I think where mindset coaches go wrong is we give them that, but then we don't break down the detail of like how to actually win that process. It's just the general, hey, win the 15. But for us, what that looks like is like obviously no score, situation, inning, like all of those things. But if you think about it, there's probably 120 pitches in a game that you're on defense. And if 120 times right before you prep step, you have a repetition phrase, we call them power phrases, that you're saying out loud to yourself before your prep step, you do that 120 times a game. You play 6 games a weekend. You play 8 to 12 weekends in the spring and summer. That's a lot of times that you're repeating that belief system into your head. So a lot of times it's funny because with the mindset stuff, everybody thinks it's all of this extra work. The goal is not to add any extra work. The goal is to take the time that we have and just use it better, right? Like be more understanding of how to manipulate that time better. So like we have players that right before they prep step, they'll say, want the ball, attack the ball. They'll prep step. They'll just say attack, flow, like whatever that term is for them. But it's us being intentional as coaches of like, even at training, we want them to say that. Like we should hear it. We should be able to ask them, hey, what's your phrase? And they should be able to tell us without thinking, right? So it's just the consistency of actually doing those things. But so much of mindset is just none of it. It's funny when you get into it because everybody thinks it's going to be like this new, big, broad topic that you've never heard of. It's really the opposite. It's taking concepts that everybody should know and simplifying them in a way that like they're tangible and something that you can actually accomplish. So like the idea of just shrinking the goal from, man, we want to win this game to I want to win this pitch. Like that's how we win a game, right? Is we shrink the goal to just what's directly in front of me.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, having athletes be able to say those words that are really, really powerful to themselves before every pitch, I mean, that's going to mitigate the result in terms of, let's say they boot a ball, right?
Yep.
If they stay consistent with whatever word they choose to say or whatever word, they have with you that they work with that find that works with them to be able to say that no matter what happens, right? And not getting attached to the result and just the process of what you have. One big thing that I talked about, you might have seen an interview recently, but I did an interview with Hero Polari, and with my boys, we read the book "It Takes What It Takes" by Trevor Moawad this
Love
past
it.
summer. And our big thing was staying neutral. No matter what happens, not too high, not too low, because obviously the game of baseball is a game of failure. So being able to stay neutral no matter what, right? I know within your facility, you're talking about mindset coach. You actually created a course, right?
Yep.
I know we talked about that before. You shared it with me. It's awesome. Kind of touch on that, the course, kind of how it was built out, and also too how you implement it with all the athletes you have there.
Yeah, so we have a course and then we have within our program like actual in-person trainings that we do as well. So like every player in the program gets 3 mental training days, and our first one's actually coming up on Sunday. It is like a national convention. We have 3 different auditoriums going. They're there 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. About half of that is like actual mindset peak performance training. And then the other half is baseball, softball IQ training. So understanding pitch sequencing and perceived velocity and defensive situations, rotations, all of that. So for us, it's like if we're going to expect it, we got to train it. Nothing drives me crazier than coaches that are like, well, they should know that. It's like, well, did you teach them that? If the answer is no, then stop expecting it, right? So for us, like we want to give everybody the basics of the mental training components that they need. So the in-person, we cover program culture. And for us, we break that down in 30 seconds. We call it 5-finger focus. We have controlling the controllables, attack the day with joy and enthusiasm, dream big and ignore the naysayers, be relentless, choose faith over fear. And if you can do those 5 things as an athlete and as a person, like you're going to be a better athlete, but you're also going to be a pretty cool human being to be around too. And we got to spend a lot of time around these families, so we don't want to be miserable, right? Like we want all parents and players to buy into that strategy. So like we'll go in depth on that and really what it means and what it looks like on the field and in everyday life to like own those 5 categories. And then we'll go into jobs, alpha at bats, and squad goals. So for us, squad goals are the 11 key goals that 95% or more of the time will determine the outcomes of the game. So for us, it's who scores first, 2 outrun differential, quality at bat differential, free base differential, strikeout rates, and then first pitch strike percentage, right? We track those every game, but for us, like we want to break that down to the players and then give them time to really internalize, hey, not every player is going to be great at all of those things, but what fits your skill set? Like, are you a guy that's just going to have a ton of quality at bats, even if the results aren't there because you're 14 years old and 100 pounds wet and haven't hit puberty, right? Like that happens when you're swinging a BB core. You might be the best
Yeah.
player on the field and get 1 hit all season because the ball won't leave the infield for you yet, right? So it's them figuring out and buying into those things. And then for us, the alpha at bats are leading off an inning. Simple rules: 50% success rate is the goal. Don't take strike 3 is the rule. Runner in scoring position with 2 outs. 50% success is the goal. Don't take strike 2 is the rule. And then runner on third with less than 2 outs cannot take strike 1, 75% success rate. So it's funny because even this stuff, like it's more baseball, but then when you get into the game and you get into that situation and you start to think like, what happens if I fail? What are my parents going to say? Is coach going to be mad at me? And you can throw all of that out and replace it with alpha 3, don't take strike 1, be aggressive, right? Like it just shifts your whole perspective. And the big thing that we're trying to do is there's so many people that try to just take a negative habit or a negative thought process and just stop it. They're like, I need to stop thinking that way. But if you don't replace it with anything new, like your CNS is going to naturally bring that same response up. So for us, it's like don't just stop something, replace it with something else. So that way we're actively speaking to ourselves more than we're listening. Because typically when we listen to our own brain, bad things happen, right? Like that's where we get in trouble. So like that's the kind of stuff that we'll go through in person. And then they can take that and they can branch into the online training. And there's really 2 aspects to that. So there's literally 56 straight days of 3 different blocks of online training. Each of those includes every morning there's like a 3 to 5 minute YouTube video they can watch. There's an activity. Sometimes it's just questions. Sometimes it's them actually like making something, doing something. Each one has like a culminating project, right? So their first one, when they finish, it ends with them building a personal mission statement of who they are, what made them that person, where do they want to go in the future, how are they going to get there, and if it doesn't work out, what are the main things that are going to keep them from that? Because if we can understand our biggest roadblocks that would potentially come up, that allows us to avoid those things or recognize them earlier in the process, right? So they'll go through that. They can send all of that over so they get feedback from me. Most people that do that include like a weekly call with that. And the goal of those, truthfully, is that like we have the content, but the weekly calls should go wherever the player needs, and that's going to look different in season versus out of season. Somebody who's feeling themselves and batting 500 versus somebody who's batting 150 and can't put a ball in play, right? Like so. That's the fun part for me is every athlete is different. What they need is different. But then you deal with, I had the opportunity to work with an NC State basketball player for 3 years. So when they made their run to the Final Four, like I was actively working with him. Well,
That's
like
awesome.
but the problems he had are very similar to a 13-year-old playing baseball. Like it's just a different scale, but the
Yeah.
typical problems that we have, the typical things that we struggle with across the board are really, really similar for most athletes. So our goal is to get them, the very minimum 3 times, but for players that want more than that, we want to give them opportunities to get more than that. Mental training's hard in the sense that like if you don't believe in it, it's not going to work. Like you're not going to put in the work, so we can't just force every single day on every single player. But the way that we try to put it to players is like, at what point as a hitter do you decide I'm a really good hitter, I'm going to stop working on it? The answer is never, right?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, we're like, yeah, my mindset's good. I don't need that right now. Like it's just when I have a problem, now I need mindset training versus looking at it as like a skill, just like anything else in the sport that they play.
So that's that's really cool that you bring that up, because something that it kind of ties into is we had Kyle Laurie on here the other day, like just talk about honestly like the culture of Ghost National. And
Mhm.
I mean, I had the pleasure of seeing Midwest Ghost National playing with a bunch of your guys,
Yes,
and
sir.
I mean the culture there is unmatched. Like me and
Yep.
Kyle were like Adam was coaching and we're like picking his brain as he's coaching, and like we're just
Yeah.
like talking, like it was so cool to be a part of. And my point here is like we talked about how culture start and standard starts from getting set by the coaches. So you
Yep.
having these coaches like really believe and like kind of like trust the mental side of things, because like you can't, like you just said, you can't teach something and not believe in it. So like having
Yep.
guys, your coaches truly believe in it and go through the same thing that the players are going through. And as a player, I would be like, yeah, like I'm all in on that. Like they're doing it just as much as I am. So I think that is so cool. I think that's really awesome. Yeah.
That was it was an unintentional thing, but it's been really cool to see the last few years, like how many coaches have taken the culture aspects that we put in. And not only are we seeing them on the field, but like I'll have a coach's call and they'll be like, yeah, I'm dealing with this, and this away from the field, but like I'm reminding myself to control the controllables and focus where I can. It's like, man, so it's cool to see that lives are being impacted more than just the on field. But like our coaches have a 3 day training before we even get to the player stuff, and then they're there for that too. So it's one of those, you always run it. You have 55 teams. You're going to have a few coaches that aren't fully bought in. Like you run into that, but we have less and less of that each year. And I think a big reason is like what we do is unique, but we don't shy away from it. So we get people that believe in what we're doing because we're very transparent about what the expectations are going to be.
Yeah. Now, what would you say for? I mean, you have it everywhere, right? Everyone, you built a culture, and if it's
Yep.
from the coach, if it's through the kids, whatever it is, right? How do you get buy-in from maybe some kids or coaches that really either just don't understand it or believe in it? Like, how do you get that buy-in from them?
So the first thing I would say, like culture is what you allow or what you expect minus what you allow, right? So a lot of times I think we ask the wrong question. Like when we are focused on pulling that one kid or one coach who doesn't buy in back in with everybody else, we're essentially dragging everybody down to that player's level. So the phrase that I live by is change people or change people. Like option one is we tell the player, the coach, whatever, like here's the expectation, we need you to meet it. Option two, and this is great in the travel ball scheme of things, is if they refuse to change, then our task now is to change personnel. So at the end of that season, we're not retaining that coach or we're not retaining that player because they refuse to buy in and do the things that we expect. So you always got to give them a chance, right? And some people are just tougher to crack than others. But if you have 12 people on your team and 11 of them are bought in, really like the more attention you give that one, they think that that's a good thing because they get attention. And a player like that, regardless of if it's good or bad attention, it's attention and they like it, right? So like oddly enough, it's the old adage that like when coach starts to ignore you and stop coaching you, that's probably when he's given up on you. But that's the reality, right? Like we want to focus our attention on the 11 that actually care, that are bought in, that are going to be here long term. And if we lose one along the way, like then we lose one along the way. We hate it, but that's the reality of it sometimes. So I think the other thing is like giving them actual tangible ways to engage in that culture. So like Sunday, we'll have this 5 finger focus discussion, but then they have a breakout session where with their teams, they're going to work through each of those focuses and decide like what is the expectation on the team. So like one big expectation on every team that I have is when we arrive, we will power hug every single player and every single coach. So that's high five right into quick power hug, you move to the next person. But we've seen too many times somebody shows up for training or a game and they're like, man, I'm tired. I don't want to be here. And if you just let that be, you're saying, hey, that's okay. You can play tired. But if they know they have to get out of their car, they're going to physically greet every single player and coach there. And there's going to be some type of high five, whatever that happens. Like that's naturally going to increase their energy because we're forcing them to do a task that they might not even realize is a culture-based thing. They just know it's an expectation if they want to be on the field. So a lot of times it's just, okay, this is what we're trying to do, but what's the task that's actually going to help get it there? And I think that's the step that a lot of people miss. So many people have these great ideas of what culture can be, but there isn't this expectation that's actually followed or this plan in place of how to create that or cultivate it over the course of the season. So it starts strong and then it slowly dips because one little thing is allowed and another little thing is allowed, and slowly that's the expectation because it's been allowed so much that people think that they can get away with it.
That's awesome. I mean, I didn't even think really about like the power hug. I mean, that kind of resonates me to
Dude,
thinking, the
yeah.
little things matter. It's like the little things like that are slowly building your culture. He said to the fact of maybe it's something they don't want to do or they show up tired, but something simple as that is just going to wake you up, embrace your brothers around you, and make you feel a little bit better. So that is really super, super, super cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because the more that you do those things, the easier it gets to coach throughout the season. Because
Mhm.
like for instance, we get them bought into these things and suddenly like a kid gets a bad strike one call and he looks back at third and he's doing the whole body language thing. Well, instead of you having to break down and tell him like, "Hey, fix your body language, do this." All we got to do is give him a thumbs up. And he knows, okay, control the controllables, like take my breath, just move on from that, right? So like it's already ingrained that either certain like visuals or certain statements get their brain to where we need it to be for them to be successful. So it makes our job easier because we're not having to over explain in the middle of a game of what's actually happening or what's going on in that sense. So the power hug thing literally came from Steve Nash. I looked way too far in depth on how many high fives he gave as a player in the NBA. But there was a direct correlation between total high fives given and overall team success because you feel more connected and a connected team has a great culture. So like for us, it's awesome to do when something good happens, but more importantly, like every time I pull a pitcher, I give them a power hug before they leave the field. I don't care if they just give up a 3-run tank and we're down, right? But
Yeah.
it forces player and coach when sometimes like it's an emotional game, we're pissed, to actually have some type of physical touch that makes you in a or puts you in a position that you can either discuss something if you need to, or shows like, hey, your value, you might have sucked as a pitcher, but like your overall value hasn't changed as a person because you had a bad performance, right? So it allows the players to see coach as an individual who wants to see him succeed, but also sees them as a human versus just, hey, you're our players and we're just pushing buttons like a video game. And if you're not successful, we don't like you anymore. So it
Yeah.
just adds that personal touch to it. It's gone a long way. And we started it high school side 3 years ago. And then I did it with my teams. It's become a program thing where it's really cool. Like we have sessions coming up where we'll have 60 people in there and you get a line of 60 people just power hugging after something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty neat. It's pretty
Lecture.
cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's the word I'll use to describe from the when I saw go like Midwest Ghost National, and even when I was in your guys' facility, like it's just electric. Like the culture, like
Mhm.
even like we don't see each other often, but when we do, like it's just the energy is totally there, and I think
Yep.
that's like such a testament to what you guys do and everything. So that's super awesome. Talk about the mission statement and the mission created like behind BAM, everything on that end.
Yeah, so Adam and I, when we started this, we were young and dumb, right? Like I'm 35 now. We started it 12 years ago. So I was 23, he was 24. We had coached one season together, and basically, like I got a coaching teaching job at a really small school, and they were like, "Hey, we have this travel program if you want to coach there too." So I was like, "Sure." Like Janelle, my wife, was pregnant. I was like, whatever's going to help financially, we got to make this thing happen." So took it more out of necessity. Adam and I went to college together, but like weren't close, like just weren't really in the same friend groups. And I put something on Facebook, like just that I needed an assistant coach, and he reached out. So it started like complete by chance. And our first year we did it, we were pretty good. Second year, both of us were like, listen, this is kind of a local based team. We're not very good, but we hate losing, so we're going to go and recruit. We built a monster of a team. We went like 49-12 or something, like stupid. Like
Wow.
beat we we were like this low level team playing in all the top tournaments, beating everybody in the Midwest. And our program was mad at us that we didn't win more championships because they were like, you should just stay local and beat everybody, which made zero sense, right? So we knew just from an overall perspective, like where we wanted to go, the program we were with wasn't going to be the right fit. We got calls from most of the bigger programs in Indiana that really wanted to bring our team over and me and Adam as coaches. And we kept asking the same question of like, hey, we have some ideas of how, this should be run. Are you open to those types of ideas? And everybody said no. Like, we just want you to come in and coach your team. So what we learned through that was like, and it was exactly what we thought. Most travel programs weren't really programs at all. They were just a lot of teams wearing the same uniform that didn't interact at all. Like they were their own separate entity at that point. And that didn't make sense to us. Like we wanted to build something that everybody kind of knew each other and there was some type of unity or culture that was involved. So we were young enough and dumb enough and we were like, you know what, let's just start our own thing and see where it goes. So we started with 2 teams, no facility. We were working out of a high school gym, ended up finding the current facility that we're at and literally went in with a business plan of a 1, 3, and 5 year plan of like how we would make their facility money if they would partner with us. And we had no idea that they were looking for new ownership. So we left that meeting. About an hour later, they called and they were like, hey, what do you two feel about becoming owners at the facility? We'll do everything with the program, but we want you guys more involved. And we were young and broke. So we were like, how do we even make this happen? So somehow we did. And at 24, we bought into an indoor facility. So we had a place for us to run out of. That led to a partnership with a local travel softball program. That was okay, but they needed more of the development side. So we brought them in, and that's when softball started. And ultimately, the goal from the beginning was as simple as bridging the gap between player development and player exposure. And the real goal behind that is like you get all of these national teams, and there's not a lot of training that they do together. Most of the training is on their own, and then they come together and they just play. There's nothing wrong with that, but at least in the Midwest, it was like all of those kids were left on their own to do it, and there was no sense of team at all. The flip side of that is like you had development teams, and whenever people heard that, they were like, these teams suck. Like that's why they're development teams, right? Where the reality is like the players just want to get better. So in our mind, it was how do we get the high level players that need exposure, but get them to understand that like who they are now as a player, they still need to continue to get better to get where they want to go. So how do we bridge that gap between the exposure that they need while we continue to develop them into the players that they need to be? And there's not a lot of programs that do both of those things, right? So it's kind of our own unique niche within the system, and it worked out really well. We've gone from 3 teams to 55. We just had our Midwest Coast national team take second at WWBA. So we've had really, really successful teams on field, but we've also had some that like just truthfully aren't very good when you look at overall record, but then you look at, hey, where were these players when they started and where are they now? And some of the biggest growth happens on those teams. So for us, it's like not every one of our teams needs to be at WWBA. Like we can have some that are playing more local because those are kids that are just trying to make their high school teams, that are trying to play low level college baseball. Like that's great. But we also need to have a path for those high achieving, high level, high profile kids that want to go play with Ghost National, that have D1 opportunity and beyond that. So I think a lot of programs, they choose one or the other of what they want. And for us, it's always been about people first. And the idea of like, if we can meet players where they are, then we're going to be able to get them to where they want to be. And the big feedback that we hear on the negative side is like, well, I want my great player to be training with other great players all the time. I don't want players that aren't as good with them. And the common response that we give them is like, I don't care if you're the best player or the worst player in the world. I want my players to be training with players who want to be great. Like I need the intent to be there for everybody in that facility that they want to get better. They want to be great regardless of their starting point, because that's the energy and the environment that people are going to get better. And if that happens, then we all get better together, which is a win. So like it's funny because the baseball and softball has come to fruition, but the ultimate goal in the beginning was to like impact lives and change people. And we found a way to kind of merge both sides of that together within something that we absolutely love to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's how you know it's a really great program when it gets built off of that foundation. It's not like built off of, like you said, probably some of the other programs that you were trying to talk to. Like it's just you can tell, it's not built off
Yeah.
of, hey, like, we're trying to just grow this really fast and make we actually have a purpose behind it. And I think that's so cool. Last thing, just talk about, you had this program, you created this program, and then you came over and partnered over with PRD too. So talk about that, how that experience has been like, all that.
Yeah, it was interesting. We had no intentions of partnering with any national type program, and we had felt that way for a while. We were approached early on by the Canes, and I feel like a lot of programs have been at this point, right? And just the structure of it didn't make sense for us. So like the pros and cons that we were looking at was like if we went to a national program and changed who we were, because most of them we would have had to change from BAM to being whatever regionally based program it was. We would lose who we are and the identity of that. We would lose the autonomy of what off-season training looked like and the mindset training and some of the things that we did. We would gain a little bit of brand recognition, but player fees would go up because we'd be paying into another system, whatever that was. And for us, we also had to balance that like we're running the facility. So from like the uniform store side of things, like that was a revenue stream for program, but also facility that we would lose in most of these cases. So it really didn't make sense. The only piece of it that made sense was like we were struggling with high level programs within our area, starting to go after our players and say things like, well, there's no national program there. How are you going to go and play on these teams? So we felt like we needed to do something. And our initial thought process was, how do we build like a coalition of programs or teams that are regionally based, one location type programs that are really good to build national level teams from that in the falls in order to, account for the football players, whatever, but have be a program that has a national branch or a place that we can send our best players to go to. And literally we had that conversation, and 2 days later, I got a text from Joe, and Joe was like, hey, love your content. Do you want to get on the phone and talk? And what we've said from the beginning is like, we'll never say no to a conversation. We'll always get the information. That way we know what's going on, and then we can make whatever decision needed. So when Joe started talking through, hey, here's what PRD is, here's the different sides of the program, this is the fit that you would have with Ghost. And then we took that a little bit further and started talking through like, hey, what if we took control of the Midwest? Like, what if we were the hub for that? We went out and brought in other programs to build the Midwest side. Not that we don't want to send players to Ghost National, but like our goal is that we're getting a Jupiter bid from the Midwest group alone. Like, let's have enough quality Midwest players that we can go and do that. And the goal for that was about 5 years. And 2 years in, taking second at WWBA, like we're on the right track with some of that, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the other piece for our coaches was like, how do we provide coaches with other opportunities outside of what we're doing that are really good coaches to potentially get on that national level and see what's out there from the player standpoint, work with different players, all of that. So for us, it was the perfect marriage in the sense that like we're still BAM, we're still FAM, but in the falls we turn into Midwest Ghost National. We pull from Ghost Ohio, we pull from Windy City in Chicago. We're looking for other Midwest partners that we can send the best players for those groups in the fall. We're pulling coaches from all of them. So it really gives all of us a chance to like share the culture that we have with other programs, pull from what they're doing, work with different coaches. It's a really cool collaboration that's allowed us to kind of stay regional in who we are and keep the autonomy while also having a bigger national branch that allows our players to gain the exposure that they want. And outside of like just the setup of it, the people have been phenomenal. Like you guys are great. Kyle, Pat, like Joe, everybody that we've worked with, we've always wanted to work with people that have a similar mindset for what they're doing, a similar passion for where they want to go. And it's hard to find. And everybody that we've dealt with on the PRD side is really, really similar in like what the overall goals of what we're doing are. So just being around other people that are like-minded has been a huge asset for sure.
Yeah. And I think that, like you just said, kind of are like everyone's kind of together, and it's super cool that, we have this conversation, or when I was with Adam and at WWBA, like we're always learning from each other. And that's the best part about being like-minded people is, hey, like mindset wise, you've said 5 things on this call that like I cannot wait to bring to my team, at least my regional team, like get it going.
Yeah.
Like even over the winter, like you said ideas to us that like after this call we go into the office and be like, Pat, this is awesome. Like
You got to do
and
this.
and we're super pumped to like get that out to people. But I mean, overall, this has been great, and we're so excited to have you come on, and this has been really awesome, and we appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. Yep. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yep. Talk to you soon.